Hi guys. This week's theme includes Western expansion and items like the Dawes Act and Native American policy. And I thought I'd tell you a little bit about a project I've been working on during the past year or so, researching the story of an Osage band chief who was born in the 1820s and died in the 1880s, which is the period which includes Osage removal from Kansas onto their reservation in Oklahoma. And initially I didn't know that I could find enough source material to put together sort of the entire history of this individual. His name was Wahesake. He was a band chief, one of the leaders of the 6 traditional divisions of the Osage Nation. And he lives during this very stormy period in tribal history. He serves on the Union side, actually fought in a battle with Confederates during the Civil War, but his main record is not as a military leader. He's more of a counselor or advisor to the principal chief of the Osages, a man named Pawhuska. And Wahesake, whose name means hard rope in English, actually in the Osage language, it would translate as rope hard, sort of like Spanish, Casa Blanca, house white. So this man, who was called Hard Rope by settlers and by the whites, he plays this very dynamic role as an advisor, a negotiator during a series of treaties with the federal government. He also is one of the people who selected the actual land that the Osage settled on, which is a tract about the size of the state of Connecticut. Wahesake also serves as a scout for the U.S. Army for George Armstrong Custer. He was a delegate to a pan-Indian constitutional convention that actually generated what would have been a state constitution for what becomes Oklahoma. The idea was that the Native Americans would actually have their own state, and this constitution was put together, and then the federal government and the Senate apparently got cold feet. They decided that having an Indian state was a bad idea. Toward the end of his life, Wahesake was nearly elected the principal chief of the Osage Nation. He also was one of the founders of the Osage Supreme Court and served as a judge. So in many ways, he's sort of one of the founders of the Osage Nation in its modern form. And he wears a lot of hats during his life. And my article is going to appear in the journal Kansas History this spring. I used a variety of primary and secondary sources. What I think was the real difference in allowing me to find the information I needed was that so many newspapers have now been digitalized, where you can search vast amounts of material and not have to sit there in front of a microfilm machine and read everything. I think that 20 years ago, it would not have been possible to find the materials that I utilized, because you could have spent a lifetime looking for them. So this is a case where technology is changing the way that people do historical research. So one result of that project is I'm now working on a related piece, and I did quite a bit of source gathering during the holiday season. Now I just have to find the time to actually begin writing and putting it together. So I hope you had a good week, and enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you folks next week.